I've always, as an artist, been very inspired by symbols. For me, they're like the hieroglyphics of language, like the way of taking complex ideas and deeply, meaningful symbols and communicating them to people in a very direct way. So in that sort of obsession of symbols, I guess I gravitated to these iconic pop culture symbols, and among those was the lobster. The reason why I was so drawn to the symbol of the lobster was really because it, as a bright red symbol, it was very evocative of both surrealism because of the association of the lobster in the surrealist period, such as Salvador Dali and Gerard Naval keeping a lobster on a lead. It had this amazing connection to surrealism and was a great muse to surrealists. So, and the Dali lobster telephone obviously being an important iconic work of surrealism. So I guess I like that iconic reference of the lobster to surrealism, and I also like the significance of the lobster as a mortality symbol since antiquity. The bright red lobster being this life or death and like question of beyond life or death. And that sort of drew me to the symbol. And then from that, I guess I really also love to channel the spirit of surrealism today, contemporary surrealism. So I felt, what better symbol to work with than the lobster to communicate this spirit of surrealism. Having studied philosophy was definitely a big influence on my development as an artist. I like to think that certainly in contemporary art, the theory and the philosophy behind the work became almost as important, if not more important, than what was on the canvas. So the idea of having this DNA in one's thinking that inspires the work is definitely relevant for me. I think that my humorous and satirical approach to thinking and seriousness, almost my anti-seriousness, is definitely something that's born out of my studying philosophy. I think a philosopher that was really important for me and very inspirational was Friedrich Nietzsche. And I think it's this sort of this arch-individualist ability for the artist to reinvent the world and having this sort of quite epic sense of emotive writing and poetic philosophy that I think I was very drawn to. And I think I definitely left, having studied philosophy, with really the desire to live my philosophy, to enact my philosophy. And I think that's why I love art, is that it's very much distilling thought into objects and action and communicating a spirit and a philosophy through matter. I mean, I'm obsessed with the language of art history. I'm obsessed with art from antiquity to pop culture of today. So I guess I think of myself a bit like sieving through history and sieving through time and trying to tap into this human dialogue beyond time. I really believe that art is the opportunity for every individual to transcend the limitations of time and really engage on the condition of being human beyond time. So for me, in my imagination, the lobster is like this time-traveling narrative device which can really engage with ideas from beginning of history to the future. That's why I guess I use a lot of references to the past, antiquity, to old masters and things in my work, because it's almost this time travel and this idea, this freedom of appearing in the past and the present and future. I think for me the fundamental of art is energy transference, like a spirit. Because I think one can attach all sorts of philosophical ideas and things, but there's also just like a human energy that's being transferred. I often say that the greatest power my work could have would be to homage the power of a sunflower. And I say that because when I look at a sunflower, it's just the vibrancy and energy that I get from looking at that sunflower is like, it's like looking at the sun. It's something transcendent. It's beyond what philosophy or words of a human can really capture. So I think for me, like the reason why I'm drawn to so much use of primary color and accessibility is, I guess, this raw energy I feel that can, this sort of pop punk energy that can come across. And I think I'm very drawn to this philosophy of accessibility and democratic accessibility within the work. For me, like, art is fundamentally a language, a human language of communication, and art taps into language and association of what's gone before. I mean, that's the beauty of it's a subject. It's not out on its own completely. It's the individual referring to a subject to create a conversation beyond time in a way. Like, for the future, it's part of a subject. And so, in a way, that use of appropriation is an opportunity basically to tap into ideas of the past. I think I particularly was drawn to Warhol's flowers because I found the symbol of the flower, again, such a poignant symbol for art, the fragility, the beauty of it, and also the very nature that Warhol appropriated him as an image of the flowers was actually taken from an advert in a magazine for a garden or flower seeds or something. So it was the idea of his appropriation, then my further appropriation on that symbol, and that iconic selected image of the flower, but then further developing that as almost my own productified toy in reference to that. So it's this, I guess what I love about it is this conversation and how every generation can respin or turn things upside down or play on ideas from the past and utilize the language, the poetry of the language. Yeah, I'm very inspired by new technology and the opportunity it gives art to really push the phenomenon of art in a new way and create something like a new phenomenon for art. So for me, that's like a vital part of creating art today. So I very much embrace technology, whether it's in teleprescent robotics, when I've used that in my work before, whether it's virtual robots going around an exhibition. I held the world's first exhibition where the opening was for teleprescent lobster robots only. And the phenomenon of that, having a room full of robots, people operating these robots at home, and it really reinvented the feeling of what an art exhibition was, and I thought that was very interesting. I've always loved this idea that if you change the way you look at something, the object changes. So I think perspective and the way you look at things is very interesting. And again, similar to that, when I did my Lobster Bots project, where I created a teleprescent art-making robot, where the viewer and the owner of the work got to create the work and become the Frankenstein-like lobster artist, was, again, for me, interesting, because it felt a bit like sending the idea of an artist into space, into no man's land, and really being adventurous on the how one can make art. Because I think that is so important. I mean, I'm also very drawn to metaverse concepts and also making cartoons and trying to really push the language of my work in multimedia. Yeah, I mean, I'm very drawn to pop primary colors. I think it's just the raw energy of them, the accessibility, the pop punk quality of it, and just the transference of energy to the viewer. So I'm always very drawn to the philosophy of pop colors. Yeah, so I've made some new print works for the show, some new flower prints and also some abstract painting prints, which I'm particularly excited about because I've been very interested in, I use this sort of plasticity and this colourful productified language within my painting. It's almost like a Pixar painting process of really trying to make my image super defined and almost surreal in its toy-like quality. And basically with the notion of painting, I wanted to take that veneer and that plasticity and applying it to the actual texture of paint itself. So almost a zoom in to the detail of my painting. And I like the abstract paintings are that. They're really a zoom into the detail of my work. And the flower paintings are just a continued journey into playing with the flower as a symbol and playfully arranging these Warholian flower toys in interesting compositions, and how the decorative quality of the flower is also such a cornerstone of art history. I was very excited about this exhibition because I really love the philosophy of art for all, and through editions and prints it makes my work available to a wider audience, and for me that's really important because I believe that art is really a subject for everyone, and I think sometimes the art world can be quite elitist in nature, so I love at any opportunity I can to make merchandise or make things that people can take away that maybe otherwise wouldn't normally be able to afford my work. So I love that democratic accessibility and that spirit of art for everyone. I was very much inspired to create video works because when I started making NFTs with my lobsters collection, I really loved the sort of dimension of how digital art, and especially art also connected to the blockchain, could really utilize this freedom of existing purely as a digital work. And so it allowed me really to explore like short animation works, which for me are very much artworks, but they live in the digital dimension. And yeah, I made quite a number of digital NFT works, which I'm excited to be showing in the exhibition. As I mentioned before, I really believe in this spirit and this philosophy of art for everyone, and I love to embrace like more city takeover concepts, because again, in terms of trying to make art new for today, I think this phenomenon of the urban city centre is like such an amazing like democratic canvas, an amazing way of bringing art into a city in a surreal way, catching people's attention in a way that's completely surprising and bringing like fantasy into reality in a way that I think the phenomenon of that is quite exciting and gives a new dimension to art, to really democratize it and really engage with a much wider audience than would traditionally go to an art gallery, and also just the very spectacle of creating something at large scale, and the great opportunity of working with these city like backdrops is creating works on a scale that really is like fantasy and reality. I've still never eaten lobster. Many collectors and friends are always trying to feed me lobster and trick me into eating lobster, but as of yet, I've held off. But I do eat, a friend of the lobster, I do eat fish and chips, specifically ones like from small seaside fishing villages. I love the pop culture quality of fish and chips, the fact it comes in the wrap newspaper. It's like the ultimate pop dish.